Okay, let's dive into this. Hello everyone and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a framework that tackles something absolutely critical to our planet's future. But let's be honest, it often gets totally buried in dense, bureaucratic jargon. We are talking about the reform of global environmental governance. And notice I said reforming, not replacing. Think of the global environmental system like a massive, incredibly complex engine. Right now, well, it's sputtering a bit. It's not totally broken, but it definitely needs some serious mechanical tuning to run efficiently. So today, we're going to pop the hood and look at exactly how we can tune this engine to get maximum impact for our planet.
So, that brings us to the big central question. How do we fix global environmental governance without a complete overhaul? It's so tempting to look at massive global climate challenges and think, you know what, we just need to tear down the entire system and build a brand new one from scratch. But the research actually tells us a totally different story. The foundation is already there. What the system really needs are targeted mechanical upgrades to strengthen what actually works and to fix the specific deficiencies slowing us down. We need precision tuning here, folks, not a sledgehammer.
Before we get our hands dirty with the mechanics of those upgrades, let's just quickly ground our terminology so we can clearly follow the blueprint. You're going to hear two acronyms quite a bit today. First up is GEG, which stands for Global Environmental Governance. This is the overarching system, the big collective of rules, policies, and institutions managing our global environment. Second is MEA, which stands for Multilateral Environmental Agreements. Think of MEAs as the specific legally binding treaties between nations, like the Paris Agreement or the Convention on Biological Diversity, for example. Understanding how these MEAs fit into the larger GEG engine is exactly what we're going to unpack.
To fix the system, the research outlines a really clear blueprint based on three interlocking gears. Number 1, guiding leadership. Number 2, authoritative knowledge. And number 3, system coherence. These three pillars are our primary focus today. Let's jump right into that first gear. Pillar 1, guiding leadership.
If our governance system is an engine, leadership is the steering mechanism. We need high-caliber professionals who prioritize the common global interests of the system over the narrow turf of their specific organizations. And this brilliantly illustrates the current problem. The system suffers from intense organizational friction and turf battles. You have dozens of different MEA secretariats all operating in their own silos, competing for funding, and stepping all over each other's toes. The proposed solution? Appoint a single executive head for multiple related agreements. By uniting related treaty secretariats under one executive leader, you essentially force coherence within those issue clusters. It eliminates the turf battles, encourages synergies, and creates massive, measurable efficiency gains. It's basically about bringing the whole team together under one coach.
But, simply appointing these leaders isn't enough on its own. Once they're selected, they absolutely must be genuinely empowered. This means giving them the true independence to make the tough calls, and crucially, the financial and structural resources to actually lead their institutions. I mean, you can't put a world-class driver in the seat and then refuse to hand them the keys, right?
That brings us to our second gear, Pillar 2, authoritative knowledge. If leadership is the steering, knowledge is the fuel that powers this entire engine. The source material makes this point incredibly clear with this powerful quote: "Science is the bedrock of sound environmental policy." I want you to really think about that for a second. Without a solid foundation of truth, any policy we build is eventually going to crumble. The global environmental governance structure has to fundamentally be recognized, not just as a political arena, but as a knowledge-based, knowledge-producing system. Everything, literally everything, has to start with the data.
So where exactly does this science come from? Well, the framework points straight to the UN Environment Program, or UNEP. First, UNEP needs to aggressively catalyze cutting-edge scientific work all across the globe. Second, it has to produce highly authoritative assessments, things like the Global Environment Outlook, that policymakers can actually trust and use. Third, and this is absolutely crucial for global buy-in, they must ensure the fair representation of experts from developing countries. Global policy cannot be dictated solely by the global north. And finally, they need to include non-state actors, like research institutions and local communities. It's all about creating a truly inclusive, cross-cutting scientific hub.
However, for this knowledge to be trusted, there's a strict boundary that has to be respected: the absolute separation of independent research from politics. We have to restructure our processes to ensure that scientific research generation is completely independent and insulated from the political negotiations that happen later. The science tells us what is happening. The politics determines what we do about it. But if the politics infects the science, the entire system loses its credibility.
Moving right along to our final gear, Pillar 3, System Coherence.
This third pillar acts as the transmission. It ensures that all the wildly diverse, moving parts of the global environmental system communicate effectively and actually drive in a common direction. Now, whenever people hear the phrase system coherence, they almost immediately worry about the creation of some massive, bloated, bureaucratic superorganization. But the research explicitly warns against that. We do not need a single, towering global ministry of the environment. What we need is a unified system. We're talking about a network of diverse, specialized agencies that share a common vision, coordinate reasonably, and communicate regularly. It's about building a well-connected web, not a centralized monolith.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a practical, step-by-step pathway for actually eliminating that bureaucratic redundancy. Step 1. We have to check the mandate expansion of the MEA secretariats. We need to stop letting them continuously grow their scope into each other's territory. Step 2. Streamline those exhausting reporting requirements that are currently just overwhelming member nations. Step 3. Structurally integrate these environmental institutions into logical clusters, like, say, grouping all the biodiversity treaties together. And Step 4. Restructure the UN Environmental Management Group, or EMG, to ensure it actually enforces system-wide policy coherence. These 4 steps, that's the practical roadmap to cleaning up the mess.
And right at the center of this newly coherent web is UNEP. The reform calls for UNEP to transition away from running individual, on-the-ground operational projects, which honestly other agencies are much better suited for, and return to its original mandate of technical competence and guidance. UNEP should be the central hub of this coherent system, with its executive director acting as the absolute principal advisor to the UN Secretary-General on all environmental matters.
Finally, let's take a look at the path to empowerment.
When we successfully tune these 3 gears, installing guiding leadership, fueling the system with authoritative knowledge, and forging a coherent, unified network out of a fractured bureaucracy, we create an incredibly efficient foundation. And once that foundation is set, the engine is ready to hit the road. The source material outlines the next phases of this reform framework, which involve actively tracking the performance of these institutions to ensure real accountability and fiercely mainstreaming these environmental concerns into broader global policy agendas like international trade and global finance. The environment can no longer be a side issue, folks. It has to be integrated into literally everything we do globally.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. With our leadership, our scientific knowledge, and our system coherence finally aligned and fully tuned, are we at last ready to seamlessly translate independent scientific research into decisive global political action? The blueprint to fix the machine is sitting right in front of us. The only question now is whether the global community has the collective will to actually pick up the tools and do the work. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time,